What's up, everybody? Welcome to Real Men, Real Talk, Uncomfortable Conversations in the world's most comfortable underwear. I am joined, finally, by Mr. Pat Barber of the Fathers Guild. I have been waiting for this for like a couple months, and I'm sorry I've kept you waiting because my wife went and decided to have a baby. Like, how dare she? And how dare we take time to take care of our wives afterwards?
How dare us? And this is all sarcasm, by the way. I am deeply appreciative of the fact that our wives give birth and we get to take time away. And congratulations on your amazing baby.
Yeah, thank you. He is a joy. He does keep us up just a little bit, but honestly, you kind of learn to expect the unexpected and just sort of you roll with it. So, Pat, tell us about yourself. Tell us what you do, why you're here, what makes you get out of bed in the morning.
Sure. Yeah. My name is Pat Barber. I live in the mountains of Santa Cruz, California. I have 4 young boys, ages 13 down to 3. I run an account called the Fathers Guild, which was kind of like a side project that I just started posting my thoughts on fatherhood because I love the process of being a father. I love the challenges it brings. I love the joy it brings. I find a lot of meaning and I very much identify as a father. That's like my thing. In my journeys in fatherhood, I found a lot of really mediocre advice. A lot of mediocre perspective that either only showed the rosy sides of it or it was all about like teaching techniques. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not how you raise kids. You don't sit down and put them in a classroom and teach them. That's not fatherhood. Fatherhood is far more about who you are and how you interact and are you thinking about the outcomes. And I wanted to put those thoughts out there. So I started this account, the Fathers Guild, and it was more of like a forward-facing journal on my thoughts on my experience as a father, and it started to resonate with people, and the account grew quite large, and I've had a number of posts go quite viral, and that drew people in, and now I'm able to have conversations about fatherhood to a larger audience and continue to refine my ideas on it. I'm constantly wrong, sometimes I'm right, and I still enjoy the daylights out of being a father and putting advice and whatnot out there.
Yeah, that's what I love about your account is it's very real. It's very down to earth. This is not some kind of highlight reel. I mean, in a way you might be able to argue it is because you're saying like, hey, here's what I've done and here's what's worked. And here's maybe some things that haven't worked.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm sure we all have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before I get on with the episode, guys, if you love this episode, if you've been liking what we've been putting out here on the channel, leave a like, comment on this video, share it. And we do read your comments and we do respond to them. We would love for more men to hear, especially this message of betterment, improvement, and becoming better men. So the question we're going to be asking in this episode is, why do some men seek critique and improvement while others see that as a threat to their masculinity? It's fascinating to just look at what's going on in the world. Look at the people in power. Not going to talk specifically about it, but there's been some stuff that's been released that's very damning to people in power. And just to watch them scramble like cockroaches has been crazy. Like, why are there so few good men out there? Why can we not do the work that it takes before we come to power to be men who can then handle that power well?
Yeah, interesting. I think that's actually, and my mind wasn't going here until you brought up that and the situation we find ourselves in with men in power. But I think it speaks to one of the bigger points that I'll point out, and something that I deeply believe in. First and foremost, though, I do want to say that there are a lot of good men out there. There's tons. They're just not loud and annoying, and they don't find themselves in the spotlight very often because they're busy doing real men stuff where they're taking care of families and they're quietly doing the work. The people in front of cameras and the people positioned in high places, like they're there because they wanted to be in those places, and there was sacrifices that needed to be made, potentially their own integrity. So like we hear a lot about the negative because that's what fuels media and whatnot. And there's also a lot of very real things happening there. But I think there are a lot of good men out there, and they do exist, and they work really hard, and they're just not loud. And I think that that's one of the big things that we don't pay attention to not loud people in a very, very loud world. So first and foremost, I want to point that out. But the second thing I would say is that I think one of the founding tenets of personal development is honesty. And when you find people like scrambling because things came out, that means there was a severe lack of honesty around what was going on. So there's things in the
Yeah.
shadows, there's things hidden, there's things that are clearly lacking in integrity, to put it very, very lightly. And I think that that's what happens is, there's, if you don't honestly face your own failings or your own quirks or your own inefficiencies, then you are the type of person who can potentially shove those things aside for your own pleasure or your own gain, and you then
Mhm.
fail to grow. So I think a founding tenet of men who choose to grow is to be honest with themselves and be honest with the world they're in. And the reason we see
Mhm.
like these things happen and then people start to scramble is because there's a profound lack of honesty at the core of their beings, a profound excess of dishonesty. How about that? And I think that really is one of the tenets of men doing a good job, is just being really honest with the world and with themselves.
Yeah. One thing you mentioned before we started recording was this idea that one of the things that separates men who crave critique and improvement versus men who don't is the men who don't are immature. And
Mhm.
I like what you said, how that's not necessarily an
No.
so why don't you tell the guys about that?
Sure. Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about for a while because it partly because the language is slightly inflammatory, and I have a job where I put things out on social media. So I need people to pay attention to it. And part of the game of social media is no matter how good the content you're saying, just like I said, there's plenty of great men out there, they're just quiet. So if you have good things to say, they're not just going to go places on social media because they're good things to say. They need to be said in such a way that they can be heard. And unfortunately, that's the day and age
Mhm.
we live in. And if you're mad about that, then you can be mad, but your message might not get out there. Like you might have to do some things like speak in a certain way to be heard. So I was messing around with figuring out how I could talk about men who are underdeveloped and men who are more developed. And a similar language around that is immature to mature. And immature has an inflammatory side of it where if you were to be called immature, you'd be like, how dare you? But in reality, what immature means is it just means that you have room to grow. You have time to
Mhm.
develop. Like we come out of the womb immature. Like
Mhm.
that's how it starts, is we're all immature across the board. And then as we grow, depending on the influences that we had and the honesty we have with ourselves and the things we pursue, we start to mature in different areas. And maturing just means
Mhm.
coming to a place of recognizing its value to us and its position to us and the greater world to me. When
Mhm.
you look at different levels of maturity in the different areas of life, you could apply this to finances, right? An immature person would have the inability to take care of themselves financially. That's immature.
Yeah.
Like you don't have the ability to take care of yourself. And that's immature in finances. More mature is you can take care of yourself. That's great. Cool. And
Mhm.
mature would be you can take care of yourself and everyone around you, and you have leftover to give. That's
Yeah.
maturity when it comes to finances. I can say that I'm not quite mature yet. I haven't reached maturity in my journey in making money, right?
Mhm.
But then you can also apply that to something like relationships. An immature relationship is a relationship where both people are looking out for themselves, where they're both like,
Mhm.
okay, it's about me. I need to make sure that I'm okay. And that's it. And as long as I'm okay, and then more
Mhm.
mature would be like, oh, I'm looking out for the other person. I'm putting their needs ahead of mine. I'm trying to do those things. And then true maturity in a relationship, and this is clearly my perspective on it, is we're not committed to the other person or ourselves, we're committed to the relationship. We've got this devotion to a third party, which is the relationship, and we're both committed to that, which means sometimes we're going to have to make personal sacrifices. Sometimes the other person's going to have to make sacrifices. And coming to a place of being able to step back and look at that and recognize that it's not about either of us, it's about what we make together and how we move through the world. That's how a mature relationship exists. And many
Mhm.
people are in some spectrum of that thing, and they're like, I think I'm doing good. And you're like, well, there's always another step.
There's always another step. Oh my gosh. I
But
remember yeah.
if you apply that lens though of maturity and immaturity to different areas of your life, you could do it to fitness, you could do it to your
Mhm.
relationship to food, you could do it to your relationship to politics, and you can kind of layer your own version of maturity onto it. But it should be an honest examining of, is this the best thing for me? And is it the best thing for the people around me? And is it the best thing to live a high quality life? And that to me would
Mhm.
be maturity. And if, yeah.
So, okay, follow-up question then.
Sure.
In your work, what's been the most effective way to get somebody out of an immature mindset?
Mhm.
Um, and I mean like whatever way works. Like what have you found when dealing with immature people gets them to like, oh wait, I need to do this thing, and then you start to see their life improve.
Yeah. It's a good question because I wish I could give you just an answer and say like this is the thing, but human beings are coming into the conversation and from so many different places that what they need is going to be different. Right? What they need to hear is going to be different. Some people are going to need to hear something that's really simple, like, hey, you are worth taking care of. You need to take care of yourself first. That might be the right thing that someone needs to hear in order to finally put themselves first for a little bit and actually fill their own cup. Whereas another person or another man might need to hear, hey, stop being such a selfish prick. You need to start thinking of other people, and they need a really heavy hand of like, you're an asshole. And if you do these 5 things, you're an asshole. And all of a sudden they realize they're doing these 5 things and they're like, wait, I didn't realize I was an asshole. And it needs to be said that bluntly. And so I wish I could say that there was one thing that you could say or do to move the needle for people, but I think is to try to meet people where they're at, like whatever they're bringing to you, and
Mhm,
offer them the thing that they can see that would show them that they have a responsibility, that's their own responsibility to
mhm,
adjust. So the adjustment might look different. So the person who needed to take care of self first would look different than a person who needs to start taking care of the world first. But
yeah,
I think the initial slide in is like what needs to be said to each of these individuals to where they can recognize their responsibility in it.
mm,
And I think that that's where a lot of people go right now in the self-help space. It's like you are responsible for your own first steps. And I think that that message kind of gets lost sometimes in the difference between responsibility and fault. So people will be like, it's your fault that you're where you're at. And it's like, well, it's not necessarily your fault. You were a product of being born a certain place. You had a lot of external influences. You had really bad stuff happen to you. You just told me the story about your friend who's had, 20 really bad things happen to them over and over again. It's like, that's not his fault, but
yeah,
he is responsible for his response to that. So
yeah,
fault is in the past. It's happened. It doesn't really matter whose fault it was. I mean, we can look at it and recognize it and think about it, but your responsibility is in your response. Like you now, like moving forward, your responsibility is the action that you take and how you respond to the things that have happened. And that's the nuance of the responsibility conversation is like stuff might not be your fault, and you can let that go. You can hang on to, all that stuff, but like you have to recognize that your next steps, that's your responsibility. And so whatever you can say or do to get somebody to recognize that it's their responsibility to make next steps, that's what I've found to be the best initial starting place. And then you can work with them on what do those next steps look like. Because until we say it's my responsibility, then we can't do anything.
okay. You know what's really funny about the way you answered that is you kind of said like, well, there's no one thing I can say, but you did kind of come to a universal truth
For
that
sure.
needs to be acknowledged of you are responsible for the next steps.
Yes.
And another thing I heard in there in your response was every guy is going to have like a different sort of trigger that's going to get them out of their immature behavior.
Yes.
And what that takes is actually knowing the man, is actually having a relationship with him. Because if I came to you just out of the blue and said,
Mhm.
you need to clean up your area, like you are not good at cleaning up after yourself. Like you don't care what I'm going to say. Like who am I?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know you.
yeah.
There's the self-help weekends that we've done over the last 10 years, and you've done this too. As you get to know somebody, especially if somebody comes that you've known this guy for like years, you can much more effectively speak into that man's life and say, "Hey, I have seen the history. I have the receipts. This is what you're doing. This is its effect on the world around you. Because I know you, here's what you need to do."
Mhm.
I think that speaks to the need that we have as men to have relationships where there's no BS. Like we love each
Sure,
other, but there's no BS.
sure. Yeah, I think that that's the importance of groups of men that hold you accountable, that you trust. I think a lot of men find themselves quite isolated, and their point of contact for any emotional depth is their spouse. And your wife is not there to be a sounding board for your male problems. I mean, she can listen for sure, but there's a certain level of intimacy you want to have with her, and
Mhm.
you can be vulnerable with her, and you can express like struggles that you're having and things like that. But if you're constantly an emotional wreck to your wife, it's like, dude, you need to find men to sort that out with you, because they know what you're going through in a different way than your wife does.
Yeah.
And they're going to be able to offer you either a harder hand or a softer shoulder. They're going to be able to support you in a way that they've gone through these turmoils and troubles with
Mhm.
a fully different mindset than your spouse. In addition to that, like, I'm not saying you shouldn't open up to your wife and do these things. You should absolutely say, hey, I'm seeking help. But I think men do a better job of it in groups of men than women
Mhm.
do a job as being a sounding board. Just, I
I
mean,
would agree with you.
it's just a different interaction. And I know some extremely capable women who are very stoic in their demeanors and all these other things, and they could absolutely help like a man could to some degree. But at the same
Mhm.
time, like, groups of men are going to relate in just a different way. The hard part, I think, for some people is finding men who have emotional depth when they don't currently have that. And that's where we start to get into things like having a neutral third party, like a good therapist, is good. What it does is it provides you, I heard this term the other day, it provides you a mirror so you can see the back of your head. If all your stuff's back here and and you never see it, like, there's no way for you to know that stuff needs to be changed until
Mhm.
someone holds the mirror back there and you're like, you've come in just like you said, you've come in the last 3 months saying this same thing. And in all these relationships, it gets to this point right here. And you say, well, it's too intense. I gotta blow it up. And you're like,
Mhm.
you've done that 3 times. And the commonality across all these relationships is you, like, and
Mhm.
you've built rapport and trust with this person to where when they say that to you, you go, oh, you're right. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you've shifted from this, like, it's the world's problem to I've got control here, which is exciting. Like, it can be confronting when someone says it's you, but it can also be super exciting because you go, it's me. That's the only thing I have control over.
And then you can
Great.
do something about it.
Now I get to do
Yeah.
something versus everything bad keeps happening to me. I get it feels like that, but at some point in time, the only thing you have control over is you. So let's go, man. Let's go.
Yeah. And if there's one thing that I preach to anybody, it is find groups of men that you can have this kind of relationship with.
For sure.
The only reason why I preach that is because it has done so much good for me. I was an emotional wreck even 5, 7 years ago. And it wasn't until I found a group of guys that I could sit around the fire pit with, talk
Mhm.
about my problems, talk about my feelings, talk about what I'm angry about, what I'm sad about, things that I feel I've lost, and things that I've done that I'm not proud of,
Mhm.
especially. It was only when that happened that I finally started to calm down, started to realize, it's gonna be okay. Like,
Mhm.
I can say this out loud, and I still got these men sitting around the fire pit with me who are listening. You can't understand what that does for you unless you've actually done it.
Yeah.
So, I will shameless plug that. Guys, wherever you are, the internet is great, but wherever you are, find groups of men who are physically around you, who
Yeah.
you can have these kinds of relationships with. It is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that. And I would say too, it's like what you start to realize by articulating these things and putting them out loud is they're not as bad as they seem. They
Yes.
seem like soul crushing, and then you put them out there and like five dudes raise their hand and be like, dude, me too. And you're
Happened to
like,
me. Yep.
huh, like, I thought I was the only one. And it's like, dude, you're not even the worst. Like, you're
Yeah.
like, it's impossible. And it's fascinating. And that goes back to that honesty thing. It's like a lot of us wrestle with these demons in our own head about stuff we're thinking or things that we've done or things we think or things that we feel are wrong and we never express them. So we try to live away from them. And all of a sudden we've got this
Mhm.
idea of who we are in our head and our thoughts and our actions don't match that. And this dissonance between those two things creates shame and guilt. And we're like,
Mhm.
and we just live and it's just this downward spiral. Whereas, like,
Mhm.
if you live in such a way where everything you think and everything you do and everything you say is all in alignment, every day is better. And the way you get to those places is by expressing this in safer settings, like with groups of men who are there
Yeah.
to hear you, and you recognize that these things aren't actually that different. They're that
Yeah.
weird, that hard, that bad. And don't get me wrong, I don't think you should go on the internet and broadcast it as like vulnerability in my post. It's like that's BS. Like that's not vulnerability.
No.
Like this is a staged, fabricated thing where you're filming a video and you're posting it to strangers. That's not vulnerability.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is being eye to eye with another man in a group of people and expressing something that you're feeling. That's vulnerability. The
Yeah.
one online is we can call it superficial vulnerability.
That's a good word.
It's something, but it's not it.
Yeah, it's not.
It might be a good first step for you. Like you put it out there and you're like, oh, you're nervous to post. And you put it out there and you're like, yeah, but like there's no actual human in front of you.
Okay, so I wanted to point out one thing that you said. So when we talk about immaturity, one thing my dad said that helped me out, he would say to me sometimes, "Son, you're ignorant." And he's
Yeah,
like, "Don't get me wrong here. Ignorant doesn't mean you're stupid. Stupid
yeah,
is something different.
totally.
Ignorant means a lack of knowledge on a particular subject.
For sure.
Stupid is when you have the knowledge and you don't take it.
Yeah.
You don't actually use that knowledge to your benefit."
Yeah,
So
it's a
I
good
see
point.
this same commonality with what
Absolutely.
you're talking about. You're immature, so become mature. It's
Yeah,
just work on it. Practice.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's actually a really cool connection that you made there. I think ignorance is a very, very good parallel to immaturity because when we are immature, we fundamentally lack knowledge, right? We fundamentally lack the knowledge. And then there's this process of acquiring the knowledge, which is one step. And then the next step is applying the knowledge. So
Mhm.
there's the acquisition of knowledge, which is the getting out of ignorance. And then there's the next step. So that's like the maturing stage. And then to mature, you actually have to apply the knowledge and see how it plays out. I do a lot of teaching of coaches, and I've actually built a framework for teaching how coaches how to coach. And part of that is I talk about dynamic knowledge and static knowledge. And static knowledge is knowledge that sits in a book or it sits on a YouTube video or it sits in, you know, somewhere where you can listen to it and just consume it. But dynamic knowledge is how that knowledge actually plays out in real life. So you have to try that static knowledge, you have to put it out there in the world and then see how it plays out. And then you start to build this working understanding of the knowledge to see, you know, what it does to the people when you try to throw it out there. And in my world, it's
Mhm.
coaching movement. So you could have the greatest cue in the world for getting someone to do something, and you throw the cue out, and it makes the person worse. And you're like, ugh. So your dynamic
Hmm.
knowledge gets adjusted by like this cue didn't work for this type of person, and then you
Hmm.
grow and you mature and you become a mature coach knows exactly the right thing to say to the individual who's in front of them because their static and dynamic knowledge are on parallel. They've grown enough together to where they know a lot of stuff and they know how it plays out
Hmm.
in the real world and when and why
Hmm.
to give what they need to give. So I would say that with your own life, if you're ignorant in the beginning and you don't know stuff, so you have to start knowing stuff, and then you have to take the stuff that you knew and then start
Hmm.
applying it. And I think that that's where a lot of people are missing right now in today's world is like we have ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is
Hmm.
like AI is the perfect example of the most profound amount of static knowledge. Like you could literally get
Yes.
the answer in a very nuanced way to like anything that you want right now. Now, does that
Yeah.
mean you actually know it? Because in order for you to know it, you got to go apply it. So
Got to go live it.
you got to go live it. So it's like this computer is gonna do a really good job of giving you education. Like, hey, this is exactly the steps you need to take. But until you go take those steps, you're not going to see how it pans out, right? They're going to say this.
I got to
Go ahead.
interject a great line for this. I heard this years and years ago from a guy named Morgan Snyder. He's got a great book and program. The phrase is, "We know more than we've lived." That's like
Mm,
it's an epidemic across all developed countries. We
just getting
know
worse now.
so much, but
Just
we
getting worse
just
now.
haven't lived it. I used to be so frustrated by that. Like I'm like reading my Bible and I'm seeing like all the stuff, like the way that I should be living, loving sacrificially, dying
Sure.
unto myself, dying for the people in my life every day. And I'm like, why? Like, why? I'm not there. And then I heard this line, I know more than I've lived. It's like, oh, it's all in the practice. I've
Absolutely.
acquired the knowledge. I got it. I see it right there written. But I gotta actually
Absolutely.
like do something about it and then move with it. And then as you in the moment, you'll find yourself as you practice this, you'll find yourself automatically sacrificing yourself,
Hmm.
automatically moving the way you're supposed to do. Like just like fighting. You can
Yeah.
read about fight moves all day long, but until you actually get in the ring and practice jujitsu,
Done.
you're going to get an arm around your neck and you're like, "Duh, what do I do?"
Yeah, exactly. I love that. I mean, that's a great word. It was, what is it? Where we know
We
more
know
than, what
more
was
than
it?
we've lived.
We know more than we've lived. I think that is perfect for this world. I actually think that's really applicable to a lot of religion. I think a lot of people who just pick up the Bible and go through it,
Mhm.
like they get told their whole lives, this is how you should do it. And it's like, well, they're never going to know it. They're never going to know Jesus till they live it. Till they do it, till they go out there and, take the steps. I think that's that hollowness that you see in some people who preach, where you're like,
Mm.
you say the words, but you have not lived the thing, and it's very hard to
Yeah.
take you seriously. Whereas when you
Yeah.
meet somebody who's truly of faith, and I say this as a man who's not of faith, like you meet someone who's truly connected to it, and you feel it. You feel like they have lived it and they believe it to their very soul, like, and not only do they believe it, but they've done it, and you're like, you are a good person. Like I see you, like
Mhm.
you read the thing, you did the thing, you lived the thing, you are the thing. Like your connection is profound to this entity, and that's amazing. Like very respectful of that.
Yeah. So I wanted to make sure that the folks listening could hear a little bit about what you do, what you bring to the world. You've already talked about it a little bit, but where can the people who are listening see more of your work? Where can they maybe engage with some of the coaching that you do if some of our people who are listening are coaches and want to talk to you?
Yeah.
Like, what are some next steps for people if they want to get to know you? What are some of the things you're working on?
For sure. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff I'm working on. It's good fun. You can check out the Fathers Guild on Instagram or YouTube. YouTube, I do slightly longer form content. It's a very small channel, and I love doing the content there. It's all personal development work and just my thoughts on fatherhood and being a better man. On Instagram, it's just the Fathers Guild. I do a lot of short form content on my thoughts on being a father. I have a website called thefathersguild.com. And on that, you can see I offer retreats. That's one of the main things I do with fathers is I'm doing 3 retreats this summer. I'm actually considering doing a father-son retreat for my third retreat, but I bring 8 to 10 guys out to my property, and we basically do a bunch of in what I would consider manly stuff, but
Mhm.
we'll basically be together as men every morning doing like sauna cold plunges where my wife cooks all of our meals. We sit and talk around a fire. We do, somatic work, go out into the forest and out into the redwoods, do journaling, writing, and like really kickstart some really amazing habits amongst men.
Mhm.
And with that, it's all off grid. So I take your phone day one and you don't get to have it back until the
I
final
love
day.
it.
Yeah. So it's that space is what a lot of people don't get in
Yeah.
today's very overstimulated world is they don't have that space. So
Mhm.
I'm trying to provide that, and the ones that I've done, so I did 3 this last summer, and they're profound. Like what it does for men's brains. And the reason I made these is cuz I did one and it blew my mind.
Mhm.
And I've found a lot of them are either too woo-woo for me. They get too into the esoteric, and it's like they're doing like butthole sunning and stuff, and I'm like I don't need that. Like they don't need to go. That's not necessary for this journey. And then the other
Yeah.
side of it
Yeah.
was like too rah man, where we're like spraying each other in the face with hoses, and we're like, "Ah, man," and you're like, holy dude, like there's a big
Yeah.
swath in between of just normal dudes who want to do some personal development, and that's
Preach it, man.
yeah, and so that's the stuff that I run, um, and those are the retreats. And then what I'm doing now is I'm trying to break down the things that make those retreats really impactful and try to get it so people can do those at home and versions of those at home. There's so much of it that is just very simple. Like at the retreat, we wake up with the sunrise, and we have this peace in the morning for 2 hours where we're not really doing anything. We're going to a sauna. We have some like forced difficulty around the cold plunge in the sauna. And
Mhm.
then we come down and we just journal and we eat, and there's peace. And so like I'm setting up ways you can do like your own morning ritual where you wake up an hour and a half before family. You sit and you have no stimulation, no phones until at least 7 a.m. and you do journaling and you do reading and you do some light like focus, and then you take a cold shower, and it's like it sets people's day up really, really, really well.
Mhm.
I'm running a group of 10 men through something I'm calling the hero's journey, based off of the classic literary hero's journey of like,
Mhm.
call
Yep.
call to adventure, refusal of call, find a mentor, and then go into the unknown. And then there's the whole, 12 cycle thing of basically taking a journey, taking an adventure. So I've got 10 men I'm pushing through right now and do it with myself. And it's really fun because it's just a container of dudes all committing to doing a bunch of things that are difficult and then also removing things that are not serving them in their lives. And then
Good.
all coming together weekly, checking in. And there's some nuance to the hero's journey of like, you're not allowed to fail. When you fail, we extend the journey. So it could take you 50 days to complete 30 days and everyone has to do it. So you're bought into this larger group. And so I have some nuance to it, and you sign a contract and you send it all in and there's a group calls. And so that'll exist as like a version of something similar to the retreats that I'm going to do. And then I want to do like a how to do a techless weekend and how to connect with your family in that techless weekend and basically remove tech, and from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, do like if you can spend it out in nature, if not, just live your normal life, but remove all the things that are overstimulating you and try and be present. So I'm writing all these things right now to get men to do similar versions of what I do at the retreat, but just on their own. And then I have like a free giveaway that I usually give, which is 30 journal prompts for fathers where they can just like sit and reflect. And I have my own version of that because I have it like they get a journal prompt sent to their email every day for 30 days. If they sit and write in that journal prompt, there's also an action step that will help them like take action on whatever they wrote in. Because like we said, doesn't matter the thing it matters that you take action on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a take action step, and then I give my like response to the journal prompt so you can see what another man has like done for a similar thing. And it's about fatherhood, and some of them are deeper, like what are your values and what do you believe about legacy and what do you want to leave and stuff like that. And other of the prompts are lighter, like what's your kid's favorite food and why do you think it's like that? So I have all those things. You can check out those all at the Fathers Guild. I just like talking to men. I like talking to men and thinking about what can move the needle so men can live better lives. And again, like you can be pro man and that has nothing to do with not being also pro woman. Like you can be pro man and pro woman. Yay. It's like, these are not mutually exclusive things. And I think there should be a lot of emphasis on both. And I just happen to be in a space where I'm very much pro man. We should probably let the audience know that it was pretty funny because I do want you all to know that I don't wear underwear. And so, you reached out to me.
We didn't even address this.
First about underwear. And I'm like, hey, I'm not your target demographic, man, because I don't wear underwear. It's not my thing. But I do appreciate what you're doing. Head out there. Keep crushing.
Yeah. No, that did make me laugh. We actually recently did an episode ranking best underwear styles for everyday wear. And I'm sorry, we put Commando down at the bottom. Like it was.
Well, of course, an underwear company would put Commando down at the bottom.
It's not even because of bias. Like I have tried it like over the years. I keep trying to come back to it and it just never works out.
I respect you. And I appreciate your position. But growing up as a surfer in Santa Cruz where board shorts were the main attire,
that is fair. Yep.
You don't wear underwear under those. And if I wasn't going to wear it under that, well, am I going to wear it under my jeans?
That is a fair assessment.
All
right. Well, that's where we're going to leave it. Man, it has been such a pleasure to have you on, Pat.
Yeah,
and
I appreciate being here.
Yeah, I appreciate your perspective. And it's really great to talk to a guy who he's out there trying. He's putting stuff into practice. And then he finds stuff that works and he's like, hey guys, here's something that works. And he just kind of calls it out like, hey, try this, and bringing other people along for the journey. That's near and dear to my heart. And that's what I do when I'm not doing this. I do that stuff off camera. Yeah. More power to you. Bless you for what you do. And may that please continue.
I appreciate your blessings and thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah. All right, guys, you know what to do. If you loved this content, like this video, comment on it. Yes, we do read those comments, and subscribe. Maybe if Pat feels like he enjoyed his experience, we'll have him back on. I am not going to sign his name to that. That is up to him. But it might take 2 years. A pleasure for me.
But we'll do it.
It might take 2 years. Like it took us long enough just to get here. So yeah, get out there. Hey, maybe some first action steps. Think about some things in your lives where you are immature. Like, let's just be honest with ourselves. I am immature in this. And just start to try to maybe turn the needle like 1 degree away from that. Okay. I leave that with you to try this week. Love you. We'll see you next time.